The Hunger Rebellion, A Dystopian Tale, Sanctuary Series Book 1. This excerpt of the book is read by the author. Chapter 1. Escape from the Rebel Refuge. Pepper was in the bathroom when he heard the first rattles of gunfire. Pausing from drying his hands, his first thoughts were that there was an internal skirmish underway. The rebels in this refuge weren't an organisation, more of a collection of smaller individual gangs. The company was the real enemy, but the rebel groups weren't a peaceful alliance. It wasn't unheard of for petty squabbles to escalate into violence. Although the rebels had a selection of guns, Pepper knew immediately that he was listening to sustained gunfire. The volumes of the bullets could only mean one thing: they were under attack from the forces of the company. Standing over 2 meters tall, with a muscly frame and battle scars over most of his dark skin, he projected an imposing figure. Ripping the door open, he was outside of the bathroom in no time. The sound of the bullets was getting closer, and a quick assessment of the situation told him that although his whole life he had stood up to bullies, today was not the day to fight and survive. The company was not here to take prisoners, and its heavy firepower was rapidly cutting down the few resistance fighters left alive. Directly in front of him stood a young woman with long dark hair. She was rigid against the wall, and Pepper was overcome with an urge to help her. Without a second thought, he grabbed her and swept her along with him as he ran down the narrow corridor, past the bathroom, towards an escape tunnel. Noticing that our hands were tied, he quickly drew a knife from his pocket and cut the ropes. As he exposed the hidden hatch, he paused for only a second to address her. "What's your name?" "Flo," she murmured weakly. "Okay, Flo. If you want to live, you're going to go through this tunnel as quickly and quietly as possible. Don't stop once you're in there, as I'll be right behind you, and I don't want to hurt you with my big heavy boots." It was a tight squeeze for someone of his build, but the incentive to stay alive was enough to make him compress his broad shoulders to fit. He sneaked a quick look over his shoulder to see if anyone else was going to escape, but the only people in view were company men, and he just managed to secure the hatch before they reached it. Pepper emerged from the shaft into the dark, cloudy night. Flo was there, standing stiff against the wall, just as she had been inside. Luckily, because the cloud was covering the moon, the two sentries hadn't noticed her. Her initial lack of movement had been an advantage, but time was against them. He needed to get her to move quickly. The two sentries, with their grey overalls and assault rifles, meandered along a lax route. Pepper mused that if they'd worked for him, he'd have stern words with them after the assault. As it was, their limited movements did allow Pepper to easily trap them. After the troops turned away, without waiting for a response from Flo, he hastily shepherded her into the woods. Once they were safe within the dark cover of the forest canopy, Pepper placed his hand over Flo's mouth and shook her to get some response. It was not safe to remain where they were, and if they were to have a conversation, it needed to be further away from the ears of the company forces. Pepper said quietly to Flo, "Come with me and say nothing. Our lives depend on this." Taking her by the hand, he guided her further into the woods, and she reluctantly followed. Only after they walked silently through the woods for around 20 minutes did Pepper believe that they were far enough away to attempt a conversation.